Good morning, Educator Barnes here. This morning I would like to talk about the recruitment and retention of Black educators. Recently, a research piece came out jointly through Teach Plus and Education Trust, and it was entitled, If You Listen, We Will Stay. When I saw that piece first pop up in my social media feed, and I clicked on it and I started reading it, I became highly annoyed and irritated. And in full disclosure, I am a Teach Plus Policy Fellow alum. So I love the work that Teach Plus is doing. So this is not a criticism of their work in particular, but this is what angered me. It angered me because yet another piece has come out to tell people who are in power, people who are in policy, what they need to do to retain Black educators. And the title it was just triggering to me. If you listen. Well, newsflash. I feel like you have been listening because you keep inviting us out. I can't tell you how many times I've been asked to be part of a working group or a study or to complete a survey or to be observed or to come in and give solutions. And so in my perspective, that's less listening, right? Or a group comes down like, we're going to do a listening tour and we want to hear everything that you have to say about this because we really want to recruit and retain teachers of color. And so you're sitting there, quote unquote, listening, right? Well, here's the thing. I'm tired of being listened to. I'm tired of that. I have, like most of the issues that they point out, we, educators of color, particularly Black educators, we have been saying these things. If you've listened to any blog I've written, any article I've written, if you listen to my podcast, if you listened to me speak, I have touched on every single issue that they have highlighted in that piece. Talking about how you're isolated at work. If you read my viral article, Teachers Quit Principals, Not Schools, that was me talking about racism in a school that I was in. The fact that I was being successful at the school, I earned a highly effective evaluation. And yet, I was being harassed. I was told to my face by white colleagues that I was an affirmative action hire. So in that year, I was not the only teacher of color that was hired because, they had an initiative to get us in the door, right? You get us in the door, you treat us like crap. You don't have other staff, particularly white staff, because we know most of the teaching profession are teachers who are white. They're not on board with these policies and procedures, so they make it difficult for these policies to be implemented. And instead of listening to us when we tell you what you need to do so we will stay, you put it back onto us. Because I talked to that principal, I said, this is happening. And the principal simply told me, in short, get over it. Life is tough. You have to persevere. Well, I'm not going to say what year it was because I was intentional about not being too specific. But it's the 2000s, right? I shouldn't have to tolerate racism. I shouldn't have to persevere through that. It shouldn't be a thing I should have to deal with, right? But I'm not naive. I know that's the world I live in, right? And I'm preparing my Black children for that world, right? But there are so many other different schools. I don't have to stay there. That's why I quit. And I say all this to say we keep saying these things. Another thing that was pointed out was the curriculum. Almost every role I've had in education, I'm typically either the only Black person in my department or the only Black person doing my job in the district. When I was a school librarian, I was the only Black librarian in the whole entire school district. When I was an English teacher at one school, I was the only Black English teacher in the department. And then we went to go adopt curriculum, right? And so I speak up and I say, hey, these choices that we have, some of them aren't that great, but this one curriculum here is super diverse. I voted for the curriculum and one of my other colleagues voted for a curriculum, a male teacher. Everyone else voted against them. And let me tell you what the reason was they voted against it. Well, we can't, Shante, we can't cut out those classic texts. So you're saying, because we're in a minority school, right? You're telling me it's more important to teach classic texts than to put text in front of students of color that's going to engage them. And we know that engagement increases productivity and it increases students' ability to learn. because that's more important. And I, as a black teacher who's been a black student in Indiana, has had to suffer through that, where I read text after text after text after text of white authors, a lot of them dead white male authors. And then, we get Langston Hughes. We get Maya Angelou. If we get lucky, we get the same few literary geniuses that we get to read, and then we're back to the classics. So I'm telling you, not just based on my professional opinion, not just based on, what's best for kids. I'm telling you as a student who were in our students' shoes what is best. And you heard me, you listened to me, and yet you did nothing. And then you wonder why my data looks better than yours, because if you read my recent article about how I did a teacher confession at NDK12. We're doing a teacher confession series. And my confession was I've never followed any curriculum with fidelity. And the root of that was you're asking me to implement this curriculum that does not suit the students I am serving. For the exception of my first job, I've always worked in schools where most of the students were Black and Latinx. That's where I've worked. And you want me to use curriculum where they're not even seen in their curriculum, or if they are seen, it's the same few authors. No. So I do my own thing. That's how I roll, and I get results. And so that's the evidence there. Not only that I'm telling you, I'm showing you through my data, and yet you don't listen. So we are telling you what we need. We are telling you that it's not fair that we have the invisible tax. And that was the other thing. In the piece, they linked to other pieces where we said the same stuff. The invisible tax, we've been talking about that. The fact that if you're a teacher of color, you're seen as a more disciplinarian. And David McGuire and I, we wrote a joint piece that talked about that, how we want to be seen as a academic professional instead of the person who's carrying out the discipline. And so let me make this real for you and how deep this invisible tax is on teacher of color. I was out of school for 5 years. For 2 of those years, I was upstairs. In-school suspension was next to my classroom. But here's my thing. If my students are in school suspension, they're not there because I wrote them up. They're there because a colleague wrote them up most of the time, right? And I'm a middle school teacher, which means if they get written up in one class, they go to ISS, then they're missing my English class. And I'm not having my English data taken because you're behind us in ISS. So what did I do? I would go next door and get you out of ISS. You come to my class, you're going to learn that, send you back, right? Because like I said, I do my own thing because I care about my kids. I care about the data, right? I had my twin boys. When I came back, I was moved to another team. I was on the ENL pushing team because I was working on in my master's in language education, and then I eventually attained my English language learner license, right? I moved downstairs to the special education inclusion team, and I had a special homeroom where I was working with double label students, students who were both labeled as English learners and as special education. Do you know that in-school suspension moved downstairs across the hall from me? And so not only would I just pull my kids, I would pull other people's kids. But the thing that pissed me off, the thing that I kept talking about is, that's great that Shantae is building these relationships with kids. It's great that Shantae's not writing up kids and kicking kids out. It's great that I can manage to have my class post all the kids that were sent from other people's classrooms to my classroom. But when are you going to listen to me when I tell you that you need to get with these other educators and teach them how to manage kids, teach them how to build relationships? How many times do I have to tell you? And then you get to the point where I'm telling you and you're allegedly listening, and then I just walk out the door. Because that's essentially what happened. After 5 years, I'm like, I'm done. Like, at that school, I was 35 pounds overweight. My hair was literally falling out. I was wearing, everybody was talking about how cute my hair was because I was curling it and making it really poofy. The reason I was making it poofy because if I were straightening my hair out, you would see where my hair was falling out at. And when I went to my doctor said, Shantae, there's nothing medically wrong with you. What you're under is undue stress. That's the invisible tax. When the burden of dealing with the behaviors of kids of color is put on you, and there's never no burden put on the teachers that's kicking those kids out and helping them with their classroom management or helping making their lessons more engaging. And we tell you this. And do we get extra pay? I had my principal come in there and count the kids. Shantae, you almost have 40 kids in here. How many kids are yours? Oh, about these 30 right here. This person got sent out for science. This person got sent out for math. This person's out for social studies. And I just kept the kids. Because if I didn't keep the kids and I sent them right back, they're going to get kicked right out or they're going to be in ISS. I would rather you be in my class because because I already have you as an English student getting double of my English class, hoping to get your scores up, than to have you sitting in ISS staring at the wall and then turning up some more, right? But are you paying me more for being effective, for teaching my class plus 10 other people's kids who's missing their subject area? No, you're not. And so these are the things that this piece addressed. But here's the thing. I'm tired of being a guinea pig. I'm tired of being researched. I'm tired of being studied. I'm tired of being listened to. I want you to do. So don't tell me if you listen, we will stay. If you do what I say, then I will stay. That's what I want to see. I don't want to be part of any more working groups. I don't want to be part of any more studies. I don't want to be asked to come out at 7 p.m. while I could be at home being a good parent and working with my boys. Because that's what happens. I sacrifice time with my family to go out to these daggone meetings, and then no change happens. So don't tag me on any more research articles. Don't, because I'm living this life. I'm a real life person. I've been telling you several Black writers, education writers I've followed, have been telling you, we have been screaming it from the rooftops. So excuse me for dismissing that piece and being irritated, being pissed off about it, because I'm tired of being listened to. I need somebody to do. I need you to do some action. Show me, not tell me that you're listening. So until I actually start seeing some differences, till I start seeing, more administrators of color, because we all know when we have more administrators of color, we get more teachers of color, because surprise, surprise, people hire who's in their network and who's in their group. And guess, I do an activity when I do a cultural responsive training where I have people take these beads and they label who's in their circle based on, what people look like. And what's interesting, a lot of people's beads end up being all the same color. So if you want more teachers of color, you got to put admin of color. But, we've been saying that too, right? So when I start seeing school districts do things that we're saying, those are the school districts I'll start directing people to. And I do that. People ask me like, Shante, should I go work here? Because we already know. I was sitting in church one time trying to recruit a teacher. And the teacher said to me, and I quote, Shante, I've been delivered from that school district. You know how they treat Black teachers over there? That's exactly what because we know, we talk about it. So if you are noticing that Black teachers, you get them in the door and they're leaving, you need to have a conversation with them and hear them out and then do what they say. Thanks for listening.